wanted to tell you about one of the most interesting stories in the UK today. It starts with an 11-year-old boy leaving Saddam Hussein's Iraq and arriving in the UK not being able to speak a word of English. Despite that, he went on to found a billion-dollar company. 18 months ago, Nadhim Zahawi was tasked with rolling out the vaccine programme. Most recently, he's just been made Education Secretary by Boris Johnson. He's just appeared on my podcast, Jimmy's Jobs of the Future, talking to us about the future of education and what he sees the future of our economy looking like. Jimmy's Jobs of the Future is now available on all podcast platforms, so check it out there. This show is made possible by the fantastic support of our various partners, and I wanted to thank the Octopus Group. The Octopus Group is a collection of 8 entrepreneurially minded businesses across financial services and energy, all founded on the one simple belief that people and the planet deserve better. They are intent on building a better tomorrow for future generations and are a certified B Corp, demonstrating they care as much about the impact of their investments as the returns they generate. I am proud that Octopus have backed this show since the second series, and they are the reason why we are now able to put such a professional show together. To hear more about what they do, it is worth checking out previous episodes with the founders Chris Hewlett and Simon Rogerson, or the CEO of their investments arm, Ruth Hancock. If you want to see how you could partner with us, go to our website at www.jobsofthefuture.co. Nadhim, welcome to Jimmy's Jobs of the Future.
Thank you very much. It's great to see you.
So, tell us what the role of Education Secretary involves.
So this is my third stint in the department. I was here in the coalition government as the Apprenticeship Czar. We had lots of czars in those days when the Prime Minister, David Cameron, couldn't find you a slot as a minister.
Yeah.
He tried to find you something to do. Actually, it was a real job, to be fair. I walked into this building and Nick Bowles was skills minister, and he said, I've done the thinking, the policy making, you now implement the apprenticeship levy and the new standards. So we raise the standards, and the sort of the golden thread, which actually carries on now, is you can't really have a skills landscape without the qualifications being co-designed by industry, by different sectors, because in a dynamic economy where sectors get crushed and reborn in double time, it would be foolhardy at best for any minister to think they can design it without actually the industry, the sectors doing that. I was returned here as the Children and Families Minister by Theresa May, which I loved. I thought was probably, I used to describe it as the most important portfolio in the department, if not in government, because it's looked after children, children's social care, children with special educational needs and disabilities. Really important work, and we can talk a bit more about it. Now as Secretary of State. So what is my role? My role, I think, is very much to focus the department. This is a great department. I walked in here and I said, it's a privilege to be part of the leadership of this department. Why? Because it's full of talented people. Now, I'm sure other departments will say they've got as talented people in it. Treasury's got lots of talented people, but I bet you they don't have people who are as passionate as I've gotten in not just this building, but around the country, in Darlington and Sheffield and elsewhere, Coventry, and in all our hubs. Why? Because you don't go into education if you don't really care and are passionate. And so that combination, actually, of passion and talent is great for any leader. What you got to do is focus, right? So what I've tried to do is focus the department. My mantra, and we all fall back on our own successes and failures or life experiences, is don't try and hug the world. Do a few things and do them well. And actually, once you do them well, people begin to believe you. And actually, when they begin to believe, then you can do even more. And so it's skills, schools, family.
Yeah.
So focus the department, deliver in those 3 areas, and we can talk about each one of those in turn. Then I would have done something truly great, because I always talk about my own backstory. Of a child arriving here at the age of 11 as an immigrant, not speaking a word of English, but having a mother who understood the value of education. And I want the system to work for every child, wherever they live, whatever their postcode, at the right time, the right place for them to be in a classroom with a great teacher in front of them and get that same opportunity. I don't believe that a child in Knowsley is less talented than a child in Kensington. They just don't have the opportunity. They don't have the school or the teacher. Some schools are clearly on an improvement journey, but I think we can do much better on that.
Yeah.
And so it's exciting.
And talk to us about the skills and family bit, because I think, people perceive kind of education secretary as like running the schools, particularly exams with everything that's happened in the last couple of years with the pandemic. So I think that's quite well understood, but like it is education, and education is becoming a lifelong thing. And you talk there in your kind of opening remarks about partnering with business much more, because, people are going to work for 50 years now. So it's like really hard actually to plan in 2022 what skills somebody's going to need in the 2060s, right? Like it's like, as you say, almost foolhardy.
Correct.
And so what is so talk us through the priority area of skills and what that means.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So a couple of things. One, I think in my first week in the department, I was invited by the CBI to address their dinner, their big president's dinner. And I stood up, I said, friends, many of you know me because of my business background before entering politics. I run an economic department, and I tell you for why. Because actually the most valuable resource on this earth is not hydrocarbons, it's not precious metals, it is human capital, right? And my department is in the business of producing, great human beings that are well-rounded adults that have high quality skills that can benefit your sector or your business. And that's the journey we're on. We began that journey in the coalition government. I just talked to you about being the skills, the apprenticeship czar. The golden thread throughout the strategy is that businesses have to be embedded in the creation of the qualifications and what I would call the skills landscape in our country. So what do I mean by that? I got here and the skills bill was making its way through Parliament. Her Majesty the Queen gave a royal assent to the bill last week. It means now we have, I used to call it the next chapter. It's probably the next book, and there's one more book to go.
Yeah.
Which is essentially, taking the journey of what we did with apprenticeships into other runways for people's careers to take off on. Now, what do I mean by that? T-levels.
Yeah.
T-levels were actually the brainchild of a Labour minister in David Sainsbury, Lord Sainsbury. Yeah. But, clearly a really good idea that we needed to implement and scale up. And so my big focus on skills is to scale up. So what is a T-level? It's a fusion between an apprenticeship and an A-level. Yeah. So you can take a T-level now in digital and go and work in Microsoft or SME in digital. You can take a T-level in construction and go work in that industry, and we're going to launch more T-levels. You can take a T-level and go and do an apprenticeship degree. Yeah. Afterwards. You can take a T-level and go and do a traditional degree. There's now, I think, 70 universities that will take T-level. So I hope by the end of this Parliament, we've got about 6,500 T-levelers today, to have 80,000+. Yeah. That's when you begin to get real scale. And scale is hard, whether in the private sector or the public sector. But that's real scale. Yeah. Now, the really exciting bit, now this is really exciting, but the really, really exciting bit is, and if you told me back in coalition government that there will come a prime minister that will convince the Treasury to stand behind any adult at any time in their career, in their life, if they want to upskill or reskill, retrain, if you're in Aberdeen Oil and Gas and you think you have an opportunity in the Northeast in offshore wind, we'll stand behind you to the equivalent of £37,000. Yeah. You can take it as a whole, 4 years of post-18 education, or in modules, right? I would have bitten your arm off back in coalition government. This Prime Minister's done it. We're building it. It's called the Lifelong Learning Entitlement. I promise you I'm going to come up with a better brand than that. I came up with the name Yougov, so I'll come up with a better brand. But it is truly, I think, a revolution in skills. Why? Because in a dynamic economy, right, when sectors are changing so rapidly,
Yes.
right, you need people to have the ability to say, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to train, retrain, and do something else with my life. And we're going to stand behind you.
And on that kind of like branding language point, so like doing the research, we've known each other for over 10 years, but it was interesting researching it because sometimes you get familiar with people and you kind of forget their stories a little bit. Like I didn't realize that when you came here from kind of Iraq, you couldn't speak a word of English, right? And actually like trying to read the Telegraph was a nightmare, and you started by reading the Sun.
Yes.
And I just, and part of me thought about that, and actually like some of the language that we use around this stuff, like tertiary and even skills to a degree, does that kind of relate to the common man and woman on the street? Well, I'm not sure it does. So that skills, the 37,000, like, is an amazing thing. But how do you get out and communicate that that's an opportunity for people?
And this is why I obsess about saying I want to make T levels as famous as A levels.
Yeah.
In many ways, actually, T levels as a brand is quite an easy brand to communicate.
Yeah.
It's a fusion between an apprenticeship and an A level. You have different paths. You can go to work, you can go to university, you can go do an apprenticeship degree or higher apprenticeship. But you're right. One of the things, when I was the apprenticeship czar back in coalition government, when we're looking at the apprenticeship landscape and looking at what other countries did and who does it really well, and we looked at Germany and Switzerland, what you very quickly discover is a couple of nuggets. The first is the stability of the system.
Yeah.
The system has been around and stable for decades in those countries. So everybody understands it. The cab driver taking me from the airport will describe to me how proud he is that his daughter is on a Siemens apprenticeship and can describe the process of how she applied, how it worked in their country because of that stability. The other thing is, we have something like 12,000 qualifications at level 3 and below, right? Our competitors, Germany, Switzerland, have got probably about 400 to 500.
Yeah.
So we have a very complex system. I sometimes sort of joke with my officials here, say you need a PhD just to understand the skill system and how to navigate it.
Yeah. And
part of that, actually, because we've been so successful in our higher education sector. So if you take HE, universities in this country are world-class.
Yeah.
Right? If you think about what we have been able to design, it's taken us, in some cases, 700 years, right, with some of the Oxford colleges.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, the product, right, has been embedded in the culture of this country for hundreds of years. So parents understand that, your son or daughter, in my case, I did O levels, and then you do your A levels, and then you go to uni. That's a fantastic thing. Out of every 4 international students in the world, America gets 2, we take 1, and the rest of the world shares 1. So we really do punch way above our weight in terms of our university education. But if the truth be told, that product is so dominant, and part of the sort of the Blair obsession with so many people having, 50% have to go to university.
Yeah.
Hand on heart, I would say to you, there'd be some vice chancellors who'd say some of their courses weren't designed to deliver a great skill or great career path for that student, but were probably designed to take advantage of the system, the £9,250 a year that you get from it. And that's what we're working to sort of move away from, to say, actually, there are other runways for your career to take off on.
Yeah.
Right? Have you looked at these other runways? But you're right, the challenge, and it remains a challenge, and I haven't got the full answer for it, is how do I create products that can sit along with what is a really well-established product that is equally stretching and aspirational, and that, that punch the air moment at breakfast when you get the T-level envelope, is what I want to get to in the way you get the A-level envelope, in past years.
And where's it, like, do you think that we push too many people into those degrees too early? Because I just think that is one of the reflections that some of the specificity of the undergraduate degrees that we get people to do actually means it's very hard then at 21, 22 on graduation to actually row back from that. It's almost like we talk a lot about skilling up, but actually it's almost harder to unskill yourself and start again. What can we do to kind of change that? Because you're right, like it comes from the fact that we're world class in it. But actually, how do we How do we change that? Because that seems to me to be one of the biggest challenges that we face.
So what I've tried to do, and I think it's the right strategy, is to take our university sector with us on this journey. So the regulator, the Office for Students, is now much more focused on outcomes, not just inputs. So it's not just about getting students onto a degree. It's about, okay, are they completing the degree?
Yeah.
Right. What's the outcome at the end of it? Are they going to a great job at the end of it? Are they going on to doing a master's or a PhD at the end of it? And actually, the really powerful thing that I can do is data and transparency. One of the lessons of the vaccine deployment is, we went from, a standing start. Remember, we started publishing data initially every fortnight, then we moved to every Thursday, and then we moved to daily data, and we got deeper and deeper with data. So regional, by local authority, by constituency, by ward, it got deeper and better. Yeah. And it allowed, whether it's Fraser Nelson's data hub or, a couple of kids in a garage, they can put an interface on it and analyze data. So in any complex system, like education, like health, data and transparency is my ally on the journey of reform. Yeah. Why? Because actually, I don't believe anyone goes to work to want to do a bad job, right? But if you can share the outcomes, okay, so if this career path takes you to a good job and a fulfilling career at the end of it, and by the way, if after 10 years in that career you feel you want to start again and do something else, we'll stand behind you with the lifelong learning entitlement. That is, I think, the best ecosystem I can create for skills, and bringing actually universities closer to colleges, so that further education, higher education are much more knitted closer together. So one of the things we have launched, it's a bit technical, hasn't really cut through, is these institutes of technology. So basically they're a collaboration between university, college, and crucially business. Yeah. So Aston University in my part of the world, your part of the world too, with the local college group, with BMW and other engineering firms in the area, came together. We fund them. Basically, it's a mini factory, but a high-tech factory with 3D printing and working on AI and all sorts of other things. For far too long, I think culturally, we've seen this sort of silo, this separation. FE is separate from HE. Yes. The reality, actually, if you go back, and the history of higher education is actually very much based on the-job experience. Even if you go and train as a doctor or a lawyer, you have historically the culture of education is very much a fungibility of both things, bringing them together, and that's what we're on that journey. And I think if I do my job properly, then I hope will leave a legacy of a landscape that is able to continue to feed a dynamic economy. Yeah. Now we'll talk about it in a second, but the data and transparency is crucial to it. And one of the things I'm launching, we launched it in the Leveling Up white paper with Michael Gove, is a unit for future skills. Yeah. Now, again, with my old vaccine deployment hat on and loving data and publishing of data, we don't have in the United Kingdom a dynamic dashboard for what the skills needs of the economy are in 6 months, 12 months, 2, 5 years, 10 years time. Yeah. Singapore has one. They've got the unit for future skills. That's where I sort of got the idea from. I went to the Prime Minister and said, look, let me build this thing and we'll drop it into number 10, into Cabinet Office, Treasury, every department, Home Office, because then we can flex the infrastructure. I have here an education infrastructure that we'll be spending 86 billion a year on by 2024, 25. Yeah. How do I challenge that infrastructure? How do I say to our great college leaders, our school leaders, our university leaders, are we meeting the skills needs of the economy in 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years out?
Yeah.
Knowing what the inputs, the investments that are coming through. We are a very attractive place for inward investment, but part of that is I want to publish, because the best thing you can do is publish that data, because actually it's the best way to reform complex systems.
Totally. And what sectors excite you most? I mean, you may not be seeing the data already come through in this yet, but what sectors excite you now? I mean, if you were 22 in 22, what would you be sort of looking at and thinking, right, well, I'm going to go for that? Because obviously we'll come on to the background in data that you had with Yougov as well. But what sectors would you be looking at now thinking that's what I'm going to go after?
So if I was still a primary school boy, and this is part of my school's white paper, is actually, of course, you need a knowledge-rich curriculum.
Yeah.
Right. But, until I learnt to read English, to write in English, actually, most important thing, I learned to think in English. I didn't know that I loved things like biology and human biology and chemistry and maths. And physics. So you need the building blocks, the foundations right, which is why so much of my focus at primary school is making sure that we really lift our ambitions. At the moment, we've had some incredible reforms, right? We're about to announce our 10,000th academy. Now, in a school system that has 22,000 schools, 10,000 is real scale. And that's very much thanks to, what Michael Gove and my predecessors did in this job. But only 2/3 of children complete primary school with the right level of quality of maths and English. Right? That means 1/3 are not. They're going to secondary and they still don't have the right level of maths and English. My white paper will change that. We're going to get to 90% of primary school children completing primary school with 90% having the quality in maths and in English. Why does that matter? Because if you think,
how are you going to do it?
Right. So actually, because I've now got the evidence, because we've got 10,000 academies, right? In the white paper, what I've tried to do is share the evidence with parents. It's very much speaks to parents, to students, to teachers, as to what I think works, right?
Yep.
And what is really clear is that a family of schools that is really tightly managed, really well supported in a high performing, and I underline high performing. Why? Because actually not all MATs, multi-academy trusts, are high performing, but in the high performing multi-academy trusts, right? The Harrises, the Star Academies, United, others, right? Many others, have delivered better outcomes. Remember what I was saying to you about that kid who couldn't speak English at the age of 11? If we always remember that what we're trying to do is to give that kid, wherever they are, the best chance in life, then those families of schools have delivered. So my journey now is, how do I complete that journey to go from where we are today, 10,000 academies, to all 22,000 by 2030? And what's great about them is the evidence is clear that actually they've done it in the most deprived regions, parts of the country.
Yeah.
And they've been able to lift that ambition. I went to see a brilliant school not far from here in Hammersmith, and with a brilliant head teacher called Gary Kinniston. And, his big mantra is, he makes sure that every one of his students, he runs a very successful secondary school. He's got 50, almost 60% pupil premium in the school, but he doesn't allow his ambition for each and every child, right, to be as stretching as he can possibly make it, because he thinks that's the best thing he can do for them. So we've got the evidence, right? I've been able to look back at where previous Secretary of States maybe haven't managed to land the strategy. I've really engaged with our Church of England schools, Catholic schools, Jewish, Muslim schools, grammar schools across the board to join me on this journey.
Yeah.
Because like with vaccine, if we just remember why we're doing this and we evidence it, then we'll do the right thing. And that's the aim. So that's schools.
Yeah.
What would I do? I'd want to be good at core maths. Why?
Yeah.
Because actually everything flows from that, right? If you want to be in data programming, right? If you want to be in data analytics, in anything else, you need core maths.
Yeah.
And so actually getting the literacy and numeracy right, plus having a knowledge-rich curriculum, I think is the best start in life. And then later on, I would definitely look at an apprenticeship degree.
Yeah.
I've got 20,000 people now who've done an apprenticeship degree. I want to double that.
Yeah.
We want to get to 40,000. Because
talk us through what an apprenticeship degree is, right? Because one of the challenges with education sector is that it's the one department that everyone has experienced, right? So everyone's got their own opinion on
Absolutely right.
but it always comes from their own experience. So explain. There'll be a lot of people that listen to that and don't know what it is. So what's an apprenticeship degree?
Right. So again, back in coalition government, when we were lifting the quality of apprenticeships and designed the new standards with business.
Yeah.
Leading it for us, we realized actually, the higher level apprenticeships, we can really stretch, and we wanted more of them. And actually, some of our business said, we collaborate with universities as well on these sort of higher technical qualifications. So we thought, actually, why don't we create, basically an apprenticeship degree that is as high quality as you would get in a traditional degree. The big difference actually is you get on the work experience.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember when I was the apprenticeship czar, we launched one with Goldman Sachs, and Goldman Sachs decided to, I think it was Queen Mary's University, if I'm not mistaken. It's going back now some years, and they took on 420 apprenticeship degree starts in digital IT back office systems in banking, financial services. Now, if I had my life over again, what's there not to like, right? You get to do a degree, right? If you like technology, right? And you're learning on the job because you're working in Goldman as an apprentice and going to do the academic work at Queen Mary's. Right? You finish your degree, you got a fantastic job at the end of it, and you're highly qualified. And so that's where we're, and it's becoming incredibly popular.
Yeah,
so it's exciting.
Yeah, and with all due respect to some of the universities, I mean, Goldman Sachs, for example, has a better brand recognition than most universities, even very good ones, to be fair. So it's, I think it is a really inspiring way. And coming on to that kind of branding, I wanted to talk a bit about your kind of entrepreneurial journey, and the first question I kind of wanted to ask you was, where did the name Yougov come from? And what was the story behind its foundation?
Yeah, totally. It was no taxation without representation. Boston Tea Party. This was in 2000 when the internet. I think it was only off memory, only about a third of the country had internet access. It was still America Online. Free serve portals world. No one had done an online survey, and the initial idea was that you would pay your council tax online, and then you would give your opinion to your local council as to how you want your money spent.
Oh, right. So the polling was the sort of secondary.
The polling was the secondary product.
Okay.
And of course, we very quickly worked out that actually there are much larger players in doing sort of legacy tax systems integration. And what really began to work was the polling element of it. So we pitched the idea to FreeServe at the time, and we became the news channel on FreeServe. When you clicked on news, we were producing the news for them, but we called it interactive news because every news story, and we hired a bunch of young graduate journalists and some more mature journalists as well, like John Humphreys and others, and one Boris Johnson, in fact, who used to write for the site, and Faye Weldon. We wanted people from different, who had different followers, in terms of their writing. But the condition was on everything we produced, they'd have to ask questions. So even the sort of the daily news story, would have a battery of questions below it.
So it was more of a media company.
It was then all about basically gathering public opinion. And then the sort of the real success of the idea was the traditional market research companies were still doing, some were still doing clipboard, but actually were being replaced by the likes of ICM, if that name means anything to you, who actually was the sort of the revolutionary at the time, because they went to telephone surveys. And so we came along, and the idea was basically, if you build a large enough panel of human beings online that is broadly representative of the adult population, then you pull off the computers, the machines would then take a smaller sample that is much more representative of the adult population, randomly, invite them to do a survey. Then actually that's better quality data, because actually all market research, all polling is, I used to say this when I was in the industry, that we're all in the business of modeling. And it's whether you can build a better mousetrap, better model, to try and capture how people are feeling, how they're thinking, what they will do. And that was the real success, because we were able to prove there's an academic study, sort of high caliber, the sort of the gold standard, which is called the British Election Survey. It goes around the world as the American Election Survey, the Australian Election Survey. And Professor Anthony King, God bless his soul, he passed away a few years ago, noticed us because we contributed to the British Election Survey back in 2001, the first election that we called accurately. And then they gave us our first break with some work for the Telegraph. From there on, the rest is history. Once you prove the model.
And that was the moment that you thought,
this is a big idea.
I
thought this is a big idea. Absolutely. This is going to transform the world, because it's faster. It's much better value for money. And the other thing is it can be deliberative. It can be, you can return to the same respondents with telephone and face to face. It's a one-off survey that by the time you've delivered the data and the report, it's out of date. But you can't go back and say, "Oh, I'm interested in this subgroup here. Why did they say that? Can we go back to them?" You can't. Whereas actually panel-based research is so much more powerful.
Amazing. And this artwork, I believe, was what
it is
hung on the offices at Yougov. So can you talk us through some of it as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. So Stephen Shakespeare, who is a wonderful human being and a great friend of mine, and he co-founded Yougov, and was a lover of art, and he knew a great artist called Derek Boshier, and Derek is one of the UK's sort of pop artists. Never became as famous as Peter Blake, and Peter Blake actually came to the show that Stephen put on for Derek Boshier at the time, but no, didn't become a sort of Warhol or a Blake. Because I think he partly wanted to continue to teach as well. Stefan did this exhibition for him, and we each of us bought 3 pictures, not for a lot of money. But I've taken them wherever I go. They've been very lucky for me, because they were in my Yougov office, and then they moved with me to my parliamentary office when I was a backbencher for pretty much, I think I was there for 8 years. And I keep reminding, certainly my colleagues, the 20.
You're lucky to fit them in a backbencher's office.
I know. Well, you were then given slightly better offices because if you weren't promoted, especially, and I spent, I think, 7 or 8 years really loving the backbenches and doing lots of work. I was on the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. I was on the Business Select Committee. Apparently, someone told me he was on the Panorama Post Office scandal the other day, which was terrible, I have to say. And but nevertheless, they've travelled with me all the time, and I just love the sort of the vibrancy. You've got to love the stuff that you the art that you hang on the walls. Because you got to live with it.
Because you have had quite a non-linear, like not only just education career, but also like political career as well. It's been sort of, it's not always been like going forward.
You've known me for long enough to know that. At one stage, I thought I was going to go from the sort of the rising star to elder statesman with nothing in between. I had, I think it was 7 or 8 years on the back benches.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I now, do share with my, younger colleagues and the 2019 intake that I am the definition of it is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
So many of my intake actually, got promoted very quickly into government, and actually taking a bit more time, spending more time on select committees, spending more time, on the back benches, I think is invaluable and has certainly served me well. And then just, being someone here who was working on a particular project like the apprenticeship stuff with Nick Bowles here, or then as Children and Families Minister, and then as Business and Industry Minister in Bays. And then, of course, probably the biggest, most important job I'll ever do in my life, which is the vaccine deployment. One of my friends said to me at the time when we began to really succeed with the vaccination program, he said, it will be the first line of your obituary. Most important job I'll ever do. But I think it's important to get that sort of ministerial experience because it serves you well when then you're asked to take on a whole department.
And how did you find the transition from kind of business to politics? Because when we predominantly interview entrepreneurs on the show, and when the mic stops, they often say, I've often thought about giving it a go, and I'd like to do it and whatever, but there's a lot of hard yards to put into it. And if you've built a successful business, there's lots of hard yards people don't see there as well. But how did you find that transition?
So I'm slightly unusual because I caught the political bug very early on. So I was a councillor in Wandsworth from '94, and so I always thought that one day I'll end up in Parliament. And then I was very lucky in being part of the Yougov team and the Yougov idea, and to be able to take that company public in 2004 as well. And so, politics was always a passion for me. A couple of similarities. One, when you first enter Parliament, is very much like a startup. Now, what do I mean by that? Each and every member of Parliament, backbencher, is a small enterprise.
Yeah,
right? You've got to build a small team. I arrived in this building, in Portcullis House, and you walk in 2010. We've just about to form the coalition government, and you get handed a laptop. You open it, and it's already all logged in with your name. But there's 800 emails saying, you're my member of Parliament. Please help.
Yeah.
Right. There's a post bag about the same, and so you've got to very quickly put together a small team, of 2 or 3 people that can just deal with the casework, because they're the most important people. They're the people who put me in this place, right? You must never ever forget that. But you're a small enterprise because you need to you basically serve your constituents, serve your customers, make sure you deliver for them on time, and you want to try and find your way around this space. Become famous for something. What is your passion? Obviously, the Business Select Committee for me was the thing to get onto, and I did immediately, almost immediately. and then Foreign Affairs Select Committee. So there are similarities to that, what I would call the sort of startup culture. You've got to be able to wake up in the morning and just motivate yourself and engage and find all the levers, form coalitions across the House to try and get a particular idea or a bill through Parliament. The other area, which I think has been incredibly helpful for me in ministerial office, is running a large organization. We took Yougov from 6-7 of us in a shed to a few hundred in a slightly bigger office to 1,000 plus people on 3 continents, now as many thousands. Change management is hard. I had to survive the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009 and right-size the business. I don't believe people wake up in the morning and go to work because they want to do a bad job. They get frustrated if they don't know why you're asking them to do something different, which is why actually much of the challenge is how do you communicate with people to explain to them. I always give the example here to my team to say, when I wake up in the morning, I like my cup of tea in a certain way. If you're going to change it, you better tell me why. Otherwise, I'm going to be grumpy all day long. And change management is hard. But actually, if you explain to people, be clear about your strategy and what you're looking to deliver, people will join you on a journey, especially if you can evidence it. Right. And actually, those skill sets are equally valuable in business as they are in running government departments.
And did you feel it was a risk starting Yougov?
I was, single. I was a marketing director at the time. High risk to leave my job and obviously do this. Had the really great support from my family and my parents. But I always wanted to be an entrepreneur one day. I always thought it's something that I wanted to do. But it's not without its risks. But I've loved every minute of it.
I guess one of the things that I'm trying to sort of tease out a bit is you say you want to be the Secretary of State for aspiration. And one of the things that I feel that we could do with more is a bit more risk taking. And I suppose, when you've left the country aged 11, starting a business, does it really feel like a risk in comparison?
When you put it like that, I hear what you say. Maybe that's the sort of the immigrant in me, that you have a different risk appetite. And I think you're right. I do think that we need to encourage more entrepreneurs. Although I have to say, I'm seeing in my nieces and nephews and my own children, this generation is much more in tune with entrepreneurialism and wanting to try out different things, being very comfortable with having multiple careers in their lifetime than even my own generation.
Why do you think that is?
Why do I think? I think what technology's done to empower young people. My children are digital natives, right? I still remember the fax machines, and that was a huge innovation. You see a document that's coming from the other side of the world, almost in real time through that sort of horrible paper that then fades away. So I think actually having a device in your pocket, which is a powerful computer that you open up and you basically see everything in the world. Much of it good and empowering. I think does open young minds to the idea of I can try out some of these things, which is a great thing in my view. The one thing that we've always been challenged on in the UK. We're sort of quite good at the startup culture.
Yes.
We are less good at you know, growing businesses and then keeping businesses.
Yeah.
The British entrepreneurs will sell out and then want to play golf and do other things. The US entrepreneurs will sell out and start the next one almost immediately after that. And the Germans never sell, and they keep these Mittelstands, and they just grow these family businesses. I just think having, and this is something that I know Rishi's passionate about, having a focus on creating more management maturity in the UK economy is something that's good. Having small business men and women thinking about developing themselves professionally to be able to run bigger businesses and keep bigger businesses.
And how did you do that with Yougov in terms of that, like, innovation side of it? Because it's as an entrepreneur, you get to 50 people. Each of these things feels like a big milestone, right? And it's, how do you do that? And how did you find the IPO process as well? Because that's a quick turnaround that you did it in, right? Sort of founding it in 2000, IPO in 2004.
Yeah. The IPO was one of the best things I think that we did.
Yeah.
Certainly for our shareholders as well. Why? Because once you became successful, we were getting offers of borrowing money or private equity as well. But actually, for us at the time, the AIM market worked incredibly well.
Yeah.
And has continued to work well for Stefan and the team, who's continued to do brilliantly at Yougov. But much of it was really accidental, if truth be told, rather than planned. Entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a sort of playbook, that there wasn't a guide that says here's what you should do.
Yeah.
But we found it incredibly helpful. And I think actually in many ways, I go back and say to you, I think, we need a culture of manager that is comfortable with growth and holding on to their business.
Yeah.
And not selling out too early. Actually, in many ways,
being a bit more ambitious. Like,
absolutely. I mean, when I was doing the business industry role, I remember, because I guess part of my role, I covered the whole, pretty much most of the economy. So other than financial services and a bit of digital, I was the minister for foundation industries like steel. I was minister for construction, minister for nuclear, minister for life science. And I co-chaired the Office for Life Science with the brilliant John Bell. And, one of his frustrations is, some of our brilliant scientists would then spin out companies out of universities, but sell out too early. And I remember, I can't remember the name of the business, but someone showing me in the Office for Life Science, business that sold out for $500 million, but it became part of a very large business, where the product is today a $15 billion product, $15 billion product. So, and that that's what I mean by creating a management culture that's more comfortable with growth and holding on to growth. To create the giants of the industry.
Yeah, and trying to get beyond because sometimes when you've been an entrepreneur, you sort of feel like it's been by look, not design, and getting comfortable with that it's not that. Like look plays a bit of it. I wanted to take you back to when we first met, because I remember saying to you, what do you want to achieve in politics? What do you want to do? And you said, and it's really stuck with me, that you wanted to be education secretary, and if your colleagues thought you were up to it, you'd like to be prime minister. And it's really stuck with me, that first bit of that, you saying, if my colleagues thought I was up to it. Is it an ambition you still hold? And look, we know there's no vacancy. We know the Prime Minister's doing a great job. But is it an ambition you still hold?
I think every member of Parliament must feel that they can, at some stage, put themselves forward to lead their party and their country. It's a privilege, right? But the thing that I really want is to be able to do this job and complete this journey.
Yeah.
Why? Because I think we've been talking about it. If I can deliver the same life chances I had to every kid in the country, even those whose parents don't have the wherewithal or have no parents, then I've done something truly great, as big as what we've did on vaccines. And I can't do that in just in the 2.5 years that I've we've got to the next general election. So I want Boris to another term, and I want us to have another 5 years, I hope, and really scale and get to 2030 when I can say to you, hopefully, in another interview, that I've actually completed the journey and delivered on that.
But it would be an amazing demonstration, right? Born in Iraq, standing on the steps of Number 10. I mean, like all the things you want to achieve. And I agree, you've got a long way to go before all of that.
I pinch myself even just thinking about that I am the Secretary of State for Education in Her Majesty's government, right? The Member of Parliament for Shakespeare, the heart of England, right? This is I absolutely passionately believe this is the greatest country on earth.
Yeah.
To have a constituency like Stratford-upon-Avon, which is 96, 97% white, affluent, middle class, yet they vote for Nadhim Zahawi as their champion, as their Member of Parliament. The man they send to Westminster to represent them.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate the luck I've had in life, but also I really, really want to complete this journey.
Yeah.
And I don't want your listeners to if you're passionate about something, you need to be clear about it, and you need to make sure people understand that passion. And I just want to do this thing right, because I think I would have made it. Every week, every month that goes by, where there are kids in our country, right, who don't have a great teacher in a great classroom, in a really strong, high-performing school, as a family of schools, for me, it is it's almost like when we were doing the vaccine.
Yeah.
Every day that went by that we're not vaccinating, then we're losing lives. And these are life opportunities for these kids, and I've got to deliver it.
Yeah. And but when you did the vaccines, you went totally. I remember speaking to you during the process.
Yeah.
Like, you were totally nailed on it, because if you got that, then it was other things would fall into place further on.
And that's you know me well enough to know that's my DNA. I don't like leaving jobs half completed.
No, but it was genuinely, I remember coming away thinking, like, there's a weird thing in British politics where people aren't. British politics is all about ambition, so it should be. But there's this weird thing where people sort of stand back from the brink, like saying, well, I wouldn't want to be Prime Minister. And I would just remember thinking, like, and the way you qualified it with your colleagues, like, even though I was like a 22-year-old at the time, it stuck with me as such a kind of neat way of phrasing it. And it's, it's a very interesting prospect. That's as far as I'll go on that side of things. But what content has kind of like inspired you along the way, in terms of, like, we see here, for those watching on YouTube, there are many books and so on. Is there something that you've particularly enjoyed or read lately that sticks with you?
So when I was growing up, you mentioned earlier, the way I tried to learn English was reading the Sun newspaper, because I couldn't read the broadsheets because they were just too difficult. And actually, journalists who are able to write for tabloids are brilliant people, because they can actually deliver a story that a kid like me could actually read as well as an adult. when I began to think in English, I loved all of Dick Francis. Anything by Dick Francis I would read. And actually, because I met someone the other day who knew him, and I loved that whole world that he created. The book that I really loved was slightly frightening, but it was Perfume, which is an incredible book about this sort of psychopathic murderer, but that was incredible. What am I?
Any education books that have kind of sort of, because a lot's written now, but because one of the things with education, it hasn't really been updated much in 100 years or so.
Yeah. My white paper. Read it.
That really is a politics.
It is brilliant. It is. I think we did some incredible work because I hope we've evidenced what I think it will be the sort of the roadmap towards my ambition, which is to deliver that great education at the right place, right time for every child in our country.
Yeah, definitely. And are there any of the Bear Grylls, the three Bear Grylls books there?
He was, he's amazing because I didn't know Bear. I was at COP26 in Glasgow, and he and his producer clearly saw me, and he actually came up to me and he said, "Look, I just want to help you wherever I can." And he's doing some incredible work with young minds. He's doing some incredible work actually interviewing people who've come through adversity, whether in business, political life, sport, and sharing that sort of character building stuff that he loves and is so important actually to produce a really well-rounded adult. It's been great. I mean, one of the really, if I go back to my life story, if there's a nugget which I think truly makes this country great, that I picked up very early on, is if you share with people what your hopes, your aspirations, what your hopes for other people, what you want to do.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people in this country that want to come and join you on that journey and help you.
Yeah.
And I love that. And it actually, Bear and loads of people who would just put their hand up and say, you know what, you're right. Let's do this thing. And if I do my job properly, I hope I've done something truly great.
Yeah. It's been brilliant to have you on. I think that's such a fantastic kind of finish. Like I do think it's an amazing, you can know somebody for so long and sometimes you get a bit familiar with their story, reading it all from the start. It really is kind of inspiring to lots of school kids and so on, in terms of, we've got an education secretary that couldn't read at the age of 11, couldn't read English at the age of 11. It's amazing. And it's great to see all the work that you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Jimmy's Jobs. One of the ways that we make this show possible is by the partners that we have that support us. They can be like today's, like the Octopus Group or the FinTech Alliance, but also we've done more consumer-facing brands like Primary Bid and Beer 52.